What's going on? This is Magic Mitch, the food adventurer, and it is day 15, challenge number 11 of this trip across the UK and Europe. This is probably the most hyped up food adventure of this trip, as I am teaming up with Randy Santel to attempt to eat the world's biggest English breakfast challenge. But this was also set up as a Team USA versus Team UK competition, with Adam Moran, aka Beard Meets Food, and his partner Paul. Now, before we get into the battle at hand, we gotta take a few seconds to talk about this behemoth of a breakfast, which is Skipper Cafe's Kraken Ultimate Breakfast Challenge. And this is actually Guinness World Record certified as the world's largest full English breakfast. And I gotta say, there is an absolutely insane amount of food here, and it's mind-boggling to see this massive English breakfast being put together. And let me just take a deep breath before I begin. Alrighty. Here we go. First off, we have the bread, which consists of 6 toast, 6 fried bread, and 6 bread and butter, which I think is a fitting number because it's an ungodly amount, which from my experience actually seems to be the perfect amount for an English breakfast. Then we also got 6 portions of mushrooms, which apparently is a whole pan full, I guess. And because we really have to continue piling up those carbs on this English breakfast, there are 16 hash browns, which are piled high to 2 big old fat stacks on this tray. Then finally, we're getting to the good stuff. They're not holding back here, as each challenge has 16 sausages. Then there's a whole tin of beans, and if you ask me, I don't know how that makes its way to an acceptable breakfast item. That's beyond me. But you know what? To each their own, whatever floats your boat. And then there's also 6 black pudding. Wait, hold on. Did you just say that they have pudding for breakfast over there? Oh, silly Billy. Black pudding is actually a type of blood sausage. I like to call them meat pucks because that's essentially what they are. Meat that comes in the shape of a hockey puck. Actually, I do think that they're pretty fantastic if I do say so myself. But anyways, moving on. Then we have 6 scrambled eggs, and I'm not gonna lie here, now I'm starting to get a little concerned with how many times the number 6 keeps showing up here, but we'll just keep going. And since there wasn't enough diversification with the type of carbs already, we're just gonna start dumping a bunch of chips in there to make sure that tray is covered completely, because they didn't think there was enough there to murder us already. So finally, the world's biggest breakfast challenge is complete. Just kidding. Since this tray isn't collapsing, they're gonna add more to the top. So we've got 16 pieces of bacon, 6 portions of tomatoes, and then 6 fried eggs. Phew, that was quite a lot to go through. Alright, time for the food adventure to commence.
Alright. 1, 2, 3. Boom. Alright.
So when it comes to this massive English breakfast challenge, here are the rules for it. So this thing can actually be taken on by yourself or up to a team of 4. I mean, if you want to go try to topple this thing by yourself, more power to you. But my philosophy has always been that sharing is caring. Also, there are no substitutions allowed, so if you're looking to get that turkey bacon substitution, this challenge isn't for you. And actually, if you tried pulling that on me, I'd probably kick you out if I were the restaurant. But anyways, so the time limit for this challenge is actually 1 sitting, and if you're able to finish this full English breakfast challenge, you get a free shirt and a certification of completion. Now this challenge isn't free and it does cost 40 British pounds, but that's not too bad when you split it with other people. And just remember, sharing is caring. And now when it comes to strategy during this food challenge, I don't think there was ever more thought put into strategy and talk of strategy than there was with this massive English breakfast challenge. Which kind of makes sense because there were so many different items to this thing. And generally speaking, I would be taking on the easier items to eat, things like the eggs, tomatoes, and sausages, while Randy would be eating more of the tougher items to eat, like those meat pucks. But he'd also have the tin of beans to himself, just so we didn't have to worry about double dipping, because even though this is being framed as a competition of sorts, we're not sacrificing our integrity when it comes to keeping our cleaner eating style. But also with that tin of beans, he could use the juices from it to eat some of the other foods faster. Now that I just said that, I don't know if juices is the right word, but I'm gonna go with it anyways. Because of how things were split up, I was expected to be able to finish my part of this English breakfast challenge first, then move on to help out old Randog here with whatever he had left, as he did have the more difficult items to eat, and I didn't want to let the big man down, since I knew he was eager to get the W against Team UK. Now something else I'd like to point out at this time, is that there actually wasn't too much intel on Team UK. Beard Meets Food was relatively new to the food fighting game, and I didn't know anything about his partner Paul either, other than finding out just last minute he'd actually come from Casey's Fish and Chip Shop, which is actually the restaurant where I did my fish and chips challenge the day before. And not only did Paul finish the fish and chips challenge, but he also beat my record, what I just recently set. And why you would go do a challenge right before you're attempting the world's biggest English breakfast challenge is, well, it's beyond me. But the crazy thing is, it didn't seem to faze him because Paul was an absolute eating machine. To say he was a dark horse in all of this would be a massive understatement. And let's be honest, no one in their right mind would ever think that in this scenario, you'd expect him to be such a powerful food fighter, especially after just completing a food challenge. Anyways, as far as my thoughts go on this food challenge, I'm giving this one a thumbs up. While I'm not a big fan of pay-to-play challenges, the fact that you can split this 40 British pound challenge between 4 people is the main reason why this breakfast challenge is a-okay in my book. You can also take all the time you want to enjoy this challenge. You also have a ton of variety to mix and match whatever breakfast items you like, and if you and your crew can chew through it all, you get a shirt and a certificate to remember the occasion, and that's always fun. As for the taste, I'm giving this one a thumbs up. And obviously, I'm not going to sugarcoat this, and you should probably come to expect this by now. And that is, man, there's an insane amount of carbs between all the breads and potato, but you know what? Like I said before, that's actually probably what makes it an ideal English breakfast. And other than that, there's not too much to note about this challenge. For me personally, I thought the sausages were pretty enjoyable with the tomatoes, and the eggs were a bit bland, but really that's not a big deal for me given the circumstances. But overall, no complaints, and I'd certainly be okay with having it again. Now with that being said, after this big breakfast battle concludes, I have a few words to say related to this challenge. So if you're interested in knowing more about that, be sure to stick around. Otherwise, don't forget to leave a little magic of your own by liking the video and leaving your comments and questions down below so we can keep the conversation going. Otherwise, I look forward to seeing you in the next food adventure.
Come on!
Here comes the hits.
Run.
Come a piece of hashbrown. Come on, get that hashbrown. Come boys, come on, you all, come on. Wait, hang on. Wait. Yeah. Theirs looks more clean, yeah. Yeah, theirs is cleaner. Oh! How much is on the floor? Theirs looks more cleaner, yeah.
Alright, so with the conclusion of this food adventure, there will actually be a follow-up video on my thoughts on a few things, including the very controversial finish. And if you're interested in hearing more about it, you can find a link to that video in the description down below.